I don't even know where to begin on today's episode. We all know what happened this past weekend. Tensions have been brewing in Minnesota for quite some time now, and unfortunately, 3 people have been killed as a result of those high tensions, 2 of which have been US citizens. If there's anything that I think we can all agree on, we can all come together on, is that that is an absolute tragedy. Nobody intended it to be this way, and I don't think anyone intended for the result to be the loss of life. I think we can all agree on that. And no matter what I say today, no matter what my thoughts are, I know that there's going to be people in the comments, and I encourage you to do so. People in the comments who are going to misunderstand what I'm saying. But I want you guys to know before we start that there's a lot of layers and a lot of dimension to this. We can agree on one particular detail or layer, and then all of a sudden disagree on another piece of information or a piece of detail in this circumstance. There's so many things going on. And today, I'm just going to give you my raw thoughts. Así que, esto es Mari sin censura. Vamos para allá. Now, I'm not going to put the video up on here because I find it very strange that we can just view somebody's death frame by frame by frame by frame as if we're totally and completely detached that was a human being. For me, I just can't even bring myself to do that. I have seen the video twice, and I don't think it needs to be repeated on here. But we all know that a man named Alex Pretti got involved and interfered with ICE officers on Saturday. While he was being detained down, and this is where the investigation will be occurring, I hope will be occurring. While he was being detained, they heard a gunshot, not sure where it came from, and decided to not only shoot Alex Pretti, but shoot him 10 times. And the justification that I saw afterward really alarmed me because on one hand, you had conservatives saying that he shouldn't be with a firearm protesting. I don't think the founders of this country would agree with you on that. That right, the Second Amendment, it says explicitly in our Constitution, shall not be infringed. And for many, many years, organizations like the NRA and conservatives all over this country have been fighting for that protection, for those rights that shall not be infringed. So I find it a little bit alarming when conservatives are now putting a caveat on the Second Amendment because he has every right to carry and to possess his firearm, even in a protest, even in a high tension situation. He does. I understand that this is not all conservatives saying this. It's not all conservatives advocating or justifying this. But it is a section of the conservative movement, more MAGA leaning, that tended to use this as a justification right off the bat. And I find that alarming. Now, if we remove that detail that he had a firearm on him, which is in his legal right to do so as a US citizen, if we remove that justification and we go on to another detail that he was interfering with ICE, he was interfering with ICE. And that is a crime. But that crime should be judged in a courtroom with 12 of his peers instead of a bullet to his head, 10 of them at which. And I think we can all try to understand that the act of killing somebody for protest is inevitably wrong. Now, we can get into the details of if the officer felt threatened, if they heard a gunshot go off mistakenly and mistaked it for Alex Pretti. All of these circumstantial things could be undercovered in an investigation. Those things we do not know yet. So I can't speak to them because we just don't know what happened. Even if you analyze it frame per frame per frame per frame, we don't have the testimony of those ICE officers that were there. We don't know the circumstances. We don't know what they heard. We don't know how they felt. We don't know all of those things, which is a big key part into knowing what happened exactly. But I do find it very alarming that conservatives are now, using caveats to the Second Amendment and emboldening the government and government officials to things which the founders were very much against. Very much against. Now, I think there's another caveat to this that's equally more important, if not the most important layer to this story, and that is the media. Now, we've had the media at our fingertips like never before in our country. Not only do we have the mainstream media, which is the big players, the MSNBC, the CNN, the Fox News, but we also have this, our phones, the algorithms. And the algorithms are dividing us further and further and further. And let me explain to you guys how. Because when you're on the app and you're scrolling and you're scrolling and you're scrolling, the algorithm is designed to make you stay in the app because that's how they can get ad revenue from you. That's how they can push sponsored posts, all of that stuff. So their main concern, the apps, all these tech giants, is to have you spend time on their platform. So they're going to show you things that you are inevitably interested in. The algorithm learns you. So the incentive structure is to feed you what you want to hear. There's very little people that venture off to the other side, that venture off into a creator that they might not agree with. And that's just human nature, because human nature tells us if somebody disagrees with us, we psychologically think it's an attack on us. It's a personal attack on us. And sometimes, to be honest with you guys, I also feel the same way when people unfollow me or people say bad things or make reels about me. I feel like it's a personal attack on me. And I've had to learn that it's not really real. And that's what it is. The algorithm is not real. This is not real. This is not real. Because I tried to explain in my stories today that if you go on my Instagram, I did it, that when we live in the real world, you guys, when we go get outside of these phones, we interact with dozens, if not hundreds of people daily that have a different opinion than us, that they see the world differently. And 99.999999999% of those interactions, we do fine. People engage with each other. People pass each other on the street. No one's killing each other because they find out that you're a MAGA or that you're a liberal. Like, nobody is really doing anything in everyday real life to cause this division. But this is the algorithms and the feed. And so this is like a pressure cooker. So you're watching this over and over and over again. And then you're seeing people being completely exaggerating on both sides, that this is a Nazi takeover, that this is like Anne Frank, that this is the Gestapo. And then you see on the other side, oh, it's a communist takeover. The lefties don't live on reality. And it's just loop over loop over loop. And it's a pressure cooker, and it's cooking and it's cooking and it's cooking and it's cooking. And then people think that that is a reality. So when the ICE people come into Minnesota, which we'll talk about why they are even going to Minnesota to begin with, we'll talk about that. They feel like they're personally trying to save the country from this inevitable, horrible ending that they think in their brains, which largely is not happening. And this happens on both sides. It happens on both sides. And I think the media is a lot to blame for this. The media using crazy language, carefully crafted adjectives that just add more and more and more pressure. And this is so evident because during the Obama years, it was quiet. During the Obama years where they deported way more people, and Obama significantly treated immigration policy, in my opinion, way worse. He set the precedent for fast track court judgments and people having no court dates to present their cases. He's the one that set the precedence of that, including the kids in cages. But because we didn't have that pressure during the Obama administration, it allowed for the previous administrations to create that precedence and build off of it. Which brings me to another layer. Why are they there in Minnesota to begin with? Now, I've seen a lot of conservative creators think that, oh, well, ICE is everywhere in the nation and it's only violent in Minnesota. And that's because Tim Walz is not telling people to calm down. They're not cooperating with ICE agents. The local police is not cooperating. So it's causing this chaos and this tension. And Tim Walz is up there saying that this is the Gestapo. He's also, participating in that pressure cooker, right? And so there's this, kind of theory going around in the conservative circles that, well, it's for a reason. Like, this is all designed for a reason. This violence is happening for a reason. And I want to offer a different thesis. Okay. This is not because that all of a sudden there's only violence in Minnesota. It's because ICE is targeting Minnesota. And they're targeting Minnesota because, as you guys remember, just a month ago, Nick Shirley came up with this documented fraud by the Somalis. It went huge. It went completely viral. And so in an effort to engage with that fraud, in order to combat that fraud, the Trump administration and Department of Homeland Security really targeted in on Minneapolis or Minnesota. They really honed in on trying to get that fraud in an order to make it seem or appear to the MAGA base or to conservatives or to the general public that the Trump administration was serious on this fraud, that they weren't going to let immigrants just go run loose with this fraud. And this is where I'm going to blow people's minds, okay? This is where I'm going to blow their minds. Trump is doing this as a response, of course, to the Somali fraud, as I just said, but it also in an effort to hide behind the fact that mass deportations really aren't happening at all. Yeah, you heard me right. And maybe that will blow some of your heads, and maybe you guys will think I'm crazy for saying that. But let the numbers show that Trump isn't really doing this mass deportation that he said he would be. The truth of the matter is that 350,000 deportations took place in 2025. And I'm specifically only talking about interior deportations. Because if we were talking about encounters on the border and then they were sent back, well, that's not really a deportation. A real deportation number, the one that we all think in our minds, is people who live here in the United States and are caught illegally and then sent back home. Those were only 350,000 people. That is nothing in comparison to the Obama administration. And that's certainly, if we want to talk about the mass amount of immigrants that came in the past 4 years, that is certainly nothing in comparison to the per capita of influx that we got. And that's the truth of the matter, is Trump is really not deporting that many people. And you tell me, well, why isn't he doing that? And that's because the donor base loves immigrants. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this, but right after President Trump got elected around December or January, there was an infight with the GOP. And the infight was Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and all these different characters fighting about H-1B1 visas. H-1B1 visas are the high-skilled visas that mostly Indians and Chinese get in this country. And they are the software engineers, they're the data analysts, the people that make the rockets and all this stuff, right? And there was this infighting saying that we need H-1B1 visas to operate our businesses. We need them. Like, they are great for our economy. They're great for the labor, blah, 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 blah. And then we have the other side of the conservatives saying, no, but it should be going, those jobs should be going to American students and Americans, not Asians and and Indians. And so there was this infighting that they kept fighting back and forth. And the tech bros loved immigrants. And then about a month or two ago, Trump seemingly sided with his donor base, the ones that love the immigrants, because he went out and Laura Ingram's in channel saying that we should be having we should be accepting Chinese immigrants and Indian immigrants, and they need to work because we don't have the American capital to do so. The Americans are not at that level yet, blah, blah, blah. And everyone found those comments to be a slightly odd and strange. Like, there was even infighting, a little bit of skirtish going on in the conservative movement because he made these comments. And because the donor class loves the immigrant community, he is making it seem and making it appear that these mass deportations are happening, but in actuality, they really aren't. They really aren't. And that is the reality, and that is just the numbers. They really aren't. So, of course, Trump is the genius at PR and media. He sends them to Minneapolis and Minnesota to do this whole edit and social media behind him, saying that we're getting all the immigrants that are committing fraud, when in actuality, he's not really doing much at all. Not nationwide, at least. Nope, he is not. He is not. And I know that might seem crazy to some people, but that's just the truth. But all of this is so tragic. It's really a shame. It's really a shame. And it's more of a shame for so many of us Americans that try to see things nuanced, that try to take each issue and each detail of an issue maybe and try to see it both ways. Because I feel that we're in an environment now that if you don't say you're completely one side or you're completely on the other side, people attack you. That kind of woke mindset that we see in the left and the right now is so damaging to our civil discourse. So incompletely damaging. But I encourage you guys to put down here below what you disagree with me on, and we can have a civil discourse. That's all for now. Subscribe below if you want more of my crazy opinions that you're probably going to disagree with. I'm going to disappoint you, but that's the world of democracy. Humans are complex. Humans aren't just one thing or the other. Our minds, given by God, are so completely complex. There's so many ways and so many different perspectives. Bueno, that's all for now. Subscribe below, and I really hope that we find some sort of peace in all of this. Esto es Mari Sin Censura. Thanks for joining.